So, hello to everyone who is watching this Zoom meeting. Thank God for the internet and the options of technology is affording us today, so each council member is in their respective home. I'm calling this emergency call meeting to order. It is March 30th at 1:09 p.m. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss further measures available to the town of Fort Myers Beach under the emergency ordinance that we passed in order to further protect our citizenry. Folks, I'd just kind of like to tell you how we got here this afternoon. On a daily basis, as many of you know, Roger and I are involved in various calls with county agencies, receiving the updates that I'm sure you're seeing. And most recently, in light of the governor's action to restrict vacation rentals and the city of Sanibel's action to further restrict accommodation rentals, we felt that it was necessary to clarify for our hoteliers and accommodation people what restrictions would be in place. The governor's vacation rental discussion left a wide open door for many situations that were not necessarily defined in our code as a vacation rental. So you should all have in front of you this morning a further declaration of emergency measures that Mr. Herron has prepared relative strictly to the accommodation rentals. What I'd like to do is go one by one. Have you all had a chance to review that, Rexanne?
Well, I have, but I thought we were going to go in order of the attachments on our email. We have a
I'll be back. I'll be back.
What day was that sent?
I don't have it.
I don't have it.
Okay, so hold on. Let's go. John?
I don't have it. I don't have it either.
Yeah, hold on. I'll send it out to each and every one of you. But as Rexanne, as Councilmember Hasselfrost points out, there is a draft resolution and a rules of procedure that govern these virtual meetings that we are mandated to adopt under the governor's executive.
My apology. Yes, Rexanne, was that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. So the rules that that Rexanne and John are talking about are need to be adopted by the town council before we even proceed. Mr. Herron, I'm going to ask you, do all the council members currently have all the forms in place?
I'm sending it out right now just to make sure, but the clerk sent out an email to all the council members earlier this morning.
Yeah, I've got that.
You have it, Bruce?
If I may, the email I sent had the agenda. It had resolution 20-14, which is adopting rules of procedure for virtual town council meetings. The declaration of emergency regulations number 2 deals with lodging, short-term rentals, closure, and declaration of emergency regulations number 3, which is the shelter in place.
Yeah, the shelter in place was actually copied twice.
Okay, my apologies, but it should be the same document?
Yes.
I'm going to wait for Joanne to come back on. So folks at home, I'd just like to, there she is. It is just exactly like the Brady Bunch. I just want to ask you to please bear with us as it's the first time we've ever done this. We all have practiced a bit, but I'm going to read resolution number 2007 into the record, and then we can discuss it. And thank you, Rexanne, for reminding me of this.
This is 2014.
Okay.
2014.
That is correct, Vice Mayor, or Councilmember Hasselfrost.
Michelle, may I ask you to read that into the record, please?
It'd be my pleasure. Resolution number 20-14. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, adopting rules of procedure for virtual town council meetings in accordance with the Florida Governor's Executive Order 20-69 that take place during the pendency of the state of emergency declared in Governor DeSantis' Executive Order 20-52 and providing for an effective date. Whereas it is well established in opinions issued by the Florida Attorney General that in order to establish a quorum, requisite number of members must be physically present in the room, and that if a quorum is physically present, the participation of an absent member by telephone/video is permissible due to extraordinary circumstances. And whereas the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has advised that in order to limit the spread of coronavirus COVID-19, individuals should adopt far-reaching social distancing measures. And whereas finding it necessary and appropriate to take action to ensure that coronavirus/COVID-19 remains controlled and that residents and visitors in Florida remain safe and secure, on March 20, 2020, the governor of the state of Florida issued Executive Order number blank. John, you might, I'm not sure what that is. Suspending any Florida statute, quote, that requires a quorum to be present in person, requires a local government body to meet at a specific public place. And whereas the order also expressly permits local government bodies to utilize communications media technology, such as telephonic and video conferencing, open paren, virtual meetings, closed paren, as provided in 120-54 paren 5 paren B paren 2 Florida statute. And whereas the order does not waive any other requirement under the Florida Constitution or Florida's Government in the Sunshine Law, including Chapter 286 Florida statutes. And whereas the order requires that local government bodies adopt rules of procedure for virtual meetings in accordance with Section 120.54 5B2 Florida statute. Therefore, be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach that Section 1, the above recitals are true and correct and are hereby incorporated by reference as though fully set forth herein. Section 2, in accordance with the order, Chapter 252 Florida statutes and 120-54 Florida statute, the Town Council hereby adopts the rules of procedure attached hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by this reference for Town Council virtual meetings that take place during the pendency of the state of emergency declared in the Governor's Executive Order 20-52. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. The foregoing resolution was adopted by the Town Council upon a motion by so on and so forth. Adopted this 30th day of March 2020 by the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida.
Madam Chairman, I'll move approval of resolution number 20-14.
Madam Mayor, before it's 20-69
Is that the
is the
blank?
executive order.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
that's our resolution number?
No, that's the
Resolution number is
executive-
20-14.
That's what we're passing, right? Our resolution?
Yes.
So it's 2014.
I did
Yes.
not get a
That's
copy.
what I said. It's
I did not get-
resolution number 2014. I'm sorry, Roxanne.
I did not get a copy of the Exhibit A, which is the rules of procedure that are referenced in this resolution.
Roxanne, it is in the email that was sent. It's one of the documents.
Would you like me to read it?
No, let's just give a moment to everyone to make sure everyone has reviewed that. In the meantime, while Roxanne is reviewing that, I just want to note for the public that there isn't anyone, there's no one but a staff member present in the council chambers. There are, according to our tab here, there are 9 participants waiting to participate in this meeting. And we have several emails, Michelle said, that we will read into the record for public comment. Roxanne,
I
did you see
just
it?
double checked my email. I have several attachments. None of them are labeled Exhibit A.
I'm
Mr.
sending
Heron?
I'm
Mr.
sending
Heron?
it to all of you now.
Mr. Heron? Could you
Yes.
just please read that for Roxanne?
Yeah, hold on, give me a moment. Let me,
Or Mayor, I have it here if you'd like.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Rules of procedure for virtual meetings of the Town of Fort Myers Beach Council, coronavirus/COVID-19. These rules are adopted in accordance with the Florida Governor's Executive Order 2069, Chapter 252 and 120.54(5)(b)(2) Florida statutes in order to provide for fully virtual meetings of the Town Council. The town is taking this action in response to the coronavirus/COVID-19 pandemic in order to comply with social distancing recommendations intended to protect the life and safety of individuals in the community. Accordingly, Town Hall is closed to the public and all notices will so state. Platform. The town will use the Zoom video conference platform for virtual town council meetings. In accordance with the town charter and the town code, the mayor will administer the council meeting as chair of the town council with technical assistance from the information technology department. The town will live stream all virtual meetings on the town's website at https://www.fortmyersbeachfl.gov. In addition, a dedicated phone line will be available so that any individual who wish or is unable to use Zoom may listen to the meeting via phone. Notice, the town will notice virtual meetings in the same manner and at the same locations as all other town council meetings, and will publish the Zoom conference number along with instructions, town council agenda. Additionally, all notices will include an email address and instructions on how to provide a comment via e-comment. Town Hall is closed to the public and all notices will so state. Public participation. The public may comment on any item on the agenda using the Zoom platform. The public may also comment using the dedicated phone number provided for anyone wishing to comment via telephone on an item on the agenda. Members of the public who attend the meeting by phone must keep their line muted at all times, except when the mayor acknowledges them to speak on a particular agenda item. In addition, the public may comment on an item on the agenda prior to the beginning of the meeting by emailing the town clerk at michelle@fmbgov.com. And I also have the address accepting email public comment. It is publiccomment@fmbgov.com. Before the town council votes on each item, the mayor will allow for public comment using Zoom or the telephone line provided. Each person that wishes to speak will be recognized by the mayor and allowed to provide public comments, one person at a time. In addition, the mayor will request that the town clerk read any e-comments or emails relating to the particular item into the record. As chair of the town council, the mayor may exercise her authority to limit the length of time provided to an individual for public comment. In addition, the mayor may preserve decorum and order in accordance with the town code. The town will provide a phone number and email address for individuals who may have questions on how to access the meeting or participate in the meeting prior to the date of the meeting. Minutes. The town will keep customary minutes and a recording of the meeting. The closed.
Thank you, Michelle.
For purposes of discussion, I'll second Ray's motion to adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Roxanne. There's a motion by Vice Mayor Murphy and a second by Councilmember Hossafrost. Roxanne, what's your discussion?
If I heard this correctly, it indicates we're going to take public comment at each item, which is more onerous in a way than the way we've been conducting things. Is there a reason we have to do it that way, John?
The reason why that most governments are adopting rules very similar to this is in order to be over-inclusive rather than under-inclusive in these emergency times.
Okay, so I just want to make sure everybody got that we've got to pause then. If we pass this, we've got to pause on each item we vote on and take public comment.
Thank you for noticing that, Roxanne. So in that regard, Mr. Murphy, may I ask you to remove your motion for the moment, and we'll see if there's any public comment on this item and then move on?
Well done. I'll remove it. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. And Roxanne?
Sure, I just think it says we had to take public comment before we vote. So
Okay, well, let's just do it this way, and that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whichever way is up to you.
Okay. Michelle, can you show me where I see if we have, or could we just ask Amy, if Amy is
Well,
listening?
Amy, or excuse me, Mayor Saracita, I had e-comment on the one item, state of local emergency. It is not particular to the adoption of the resolution.
Mhm.
Have a few people waiting to comment by phone. It is unclear whether it is to speak to the resolution in particular or general item of the state of local emergency.
Michelle, you're breaking up a little bit, and I'm wondering if you're speaking too loud for your microphone or something, because it's
Okay.
You're kind of popping in and out there. Okay,
Thank you.
well, shall we? Yes, thank you. Shall we see who these people are we have on the phone and ask them if it pertains to this particular issue?
May I ask one question, please, before we
All right.
move on?
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten a couple of texts from news media people who
Yes.
who apparently have our code to log into this Zoom conference, and they're telling me that they're asking me to ask if the host can let them into this meeting virtually. Now, I don't know what that means, if it means that they're going to be up on the screen and participate and that sort of thing, but I think these two members of the press that are contacting me just want to be able to listen as the meeting progresses. Is there a way, I'm going to ask again because I asked in the beginning of the meeting, is there a way that the press can listen to this while it's being conducted?
Yes, Vice Mayor. I show that there are 16 people waiting to make public comment.
So are they listening to these proceedings as we go along?
If they have logged in to another device. This, I think we discussed yesterday, that the people that are waiting to make comment are in the waiting room. And as we demonstrated yesterday, while you're in the
Have
waiting
it clear. Uh-oh, do we have a drop?
So can these folks, these news people, can they get on YouTube and watch this, or Comcast?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And,
well, then
or
that's
Comcast,
the
and they
answer.
can hear it from the town's website.
Okay, I'll do that.
And
Thank
while
you.
they're in the waiting room, it's my suggestion that they access another form of broadcast in order to see and hear.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Because when they're in the waiting room, they see a blank page.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that doesn't do them much good if they want to
No,
follow along.
They need to be watching it on YouTube, and
Okay.
because otherwise they're participating in the meeting. Okay,
And
so
if I may, and I defer to the mayor, the manager, and the attorney, not knowing exactly what people are wanting to comment on, it may be in the best interest to take all public comment before taking any action. But again, I defer to the manager or the attorney.
John, because that is, that's the question that Roxanne asked as to whether or not we're taking it on each item. If we don't know if anyone is speaking on this, what's your suggestion?
One of two things. We can open it up to all public comment at this point in time, or as those people who are in the waiting room are allowed to speak, is that they can say not on this item, and we can go in sequence and then roll back over to them when they want to hear the next item.
Let's do that. Michelle, can you bring the first person up, please?
Would you like me to take the e-comment first or the phone?
The e-comment first will be fine.
Okay, this came in yesterday. I only received one. It came from the email address jim.hockett@yahoo.com. No indication of whether or not he is a resident.
Does it, Michelle, can you tell, does it pertain to this particular issue?
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
go
it
ahead.
pertains to COVID-19.
Does it pertain to the emergency ordinance relative to the meeting?
The
structure?
emergency resolution? No, Mayor.
Let's hold him off then.
Okay.
Who's our first other person? Maxine?
I see that Jackie Lezak is waiting to speak.
Okay, I see a little box here that says Maxine. Is that something real?
She is the third. I'm showing Jackie Lezak, Matt Love, Maxine, Katie Berkeley,
Call the first one, Michelle.
Jackie Lezak.
Jackie, can you hear us? Jackie Lisak, can you hear us? Okay, so there she is. Jackie,
She's connecting.
Michelle, let's leave her on hold. Give me somebody else.
That would be Matt Love.
Chief Love, can you hear us? Okay, we seem to be having a glitch here. Amy, Michelle, I see that it says, Jackie is texting saying there's no way to hear the meeting while in the waiting room. Yes, we know. You have to be on YouTube. Michelle? I don't
Yes,
know what
ma'am.
that running water sound is. Okay, I see Jackie Lisak's name here. Is she, but she can't, she's not hearing anything because she's in the waiting room. Can you bring her into the meeting? Matt
Yes.
Love told me he has no comment. He is logged in watching the meeting, but he is standing by in the event that anybody has any questions for him. Okay, Michelle left. Amy, if you can hear me, is there a way for you to bring a speaker onto the screen?
Mayor, I am told that if you see their name, as I see Jackie, she is no longer in the waiting room, that she is in the meeting.
Jackie Lisak, are you in the meeting? Jackie Lisak? Take Jackie Lisak away, please. Let's see if somebody else can come into the meeting. Okay, Katie Berkeley is connecting to audio.
There's Katie.
Katie, can you hear us, Katie? Katie?
There's Katie.
Katie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, Katie, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Katie, do you have any comments relative to the meeting procedure that we're undergoing? That's the item that we're,
I do not. And if you need me to just watch by YouTube to let others into the meeting, I'm happy to log off of Zoom.
Katie, thank you so much. If you do have comment on any one of the items that we're going to discuss, you can log back in, okay?
All right, will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. That was Katie Berkey. Who's next, Michelle?
Tim Malvin.
This is the Best Western. Boy, I wish I knew what that sound was. Okay, Mr. Malvin is not connecting for audio. Let's see, Maxine, is Maxine on? Okay, so neither one of these, can we take them off the screen, please, and bring somebody else in? Okay, I'm just going to make a general comment here. If there is anyone watching the meeting at this moment who wishes to comment on the procedure of the meeting, which is what we are discussing right now, could you please log into Zoom and let us know? I see Judith, I see Dawn. Let's go to Dawn. Is Dawn there? So how about Judith? Okay, there's Dawn Thomas. Dawn, can you hear me? She has her microphone muted. Dawn? Can Dawn hear? Okay, let's take Dawn off the screen. And is Judith here? Okay. Judith? Okay, let's take Judith off. Mr. First. Amy, I have an idea. Amy, oh, here we go. There's Megan Miller. Megan Miller, do you have a comment on the meeting operation? Okay, these people are just coming on, and Amy, would you please take these people off the screen? Is it possible for us to use the chat format and have people ask their questions in the chat and we can answer them here? Is that possible? Can members of the audience see the chat? Can anyone answer that question, please? Can anyone answer that question, please? Michelle, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mayor. I thought you were looking for the participants.
I'm asking, can we use the chat feature? So John Heron
The chat feature is engaged.
The chat.
So can our
participants in the meeting can participate with the chat feature. People in the waiting cannot use it.
Okay, that doesn't help then. I'm going to ask one more time if there is anyone. Jackie Lisak says she is not being let on. If there is anyone who can, okay, so the chat feature is out. Now it says Jackie's connecting to audio. If there's anyone listening to the meeting who has commentary on the procedure of the meeting, only the procedure of the meeting, please let us know. I don't believe anyone has comment on procedure.
All right, Jackie's on.
Okay,
Jackie,
hi guys. Can you hear me?
Jackie, yes. Do you have comment on the procedure of the meeting, Jackie?
Yes, I would like to see the meeting proceed with the ability for folks to, like you're trying to get them to email, text, or write their comment. My understanding with Zoom is that it's how you're into the meeting. They're being blocked from actually being able to log on. You can let everyone have access, but then mute them until they put their hands up. That's my understanding. And I do want to let you know that I'm getting contacted from a lot of our island businesses, specifically accommodations, looking for everybody to be on the same playing field at this point. And pretty much every hotel, which you may know, Anita, is reporting under 5% occupancy. One or two might be between 5 and 10%. So the feeling seems to be that they would prefer to just be shut down and go forward because it's costing more to stay open. That's
Thank you for that, Jackie. I'll let you restate that when that issue comes up.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle and Amy, do we have the ability to put everyone who is currently on hold in the room with us, and we call on them one by one to see if they wish to comment? Because I believe people are logging into Zoom. Amy is saying yes. Amy, put everyone who's in the waiting room on the screen and mute them until I call their name. Thank you. Oh, this is fantastic. We're logging into Zoom. Amy is saying yes. Okay. Amy, I need you to mute them. Everyone who is watching and who's just been put into the screen needs to mute their microphone until they're called. Thank you all. Dawn, if you can hear me, Dawn, do you have any comments on the process of the meeting? Okay. See none. Tracy Smith. If you can hear me, Dawn, do you have any comments on the process of the meeting? Oh, there's tremendous delay. Okay, so I don't know if they can't hear or they're not. Tim Malbin. And then we have two phones. Okay, so.
Hello.
Yes, who is that? Who's speaking?
My name is Tim Shadle.
Hello, Mr. Shadle. Mr. Shadle, may I ask you a question?
You sure may.
Do you have any comment on the process of this meeting? That is the motion that is currently on the floor to adopt the rules.
Yes, I do. I actually wrote an email to each of you, plus I sent it to the public comment email as well. But my email is actually two-part, one in reference to the procedure and another comment that I have in reference to the COVID virus. But the procedure, I think once the issues are worked out, I think this actually is an excellent way to deal with this at this time, but also possibly into the future, because I think that not only because of the COVID virus, but actually for the security of every member of the council and staff, I think that really that this should be looked at into the future, because I happen to come from a town in Pennsylvania in which one of our council members was actually shot and killed during a council meeting. I think with technology the way it is today, there should be meetings held such as you're doing now, where you can be in the convenience of your home and the public can be in the convenience of their home, and we can express our opinions just as freely through the internet and the phone as we could in person.
Mr. Shadle, I thank you very much for your comment. Would you please stay on the line so we'll come back to you for the next item?
Yes.
Okay, Ginny Smith. Amy, will you unmute Ginny Smith? Ginny Smith, can you hear me?
Yes, I don't have a comment. I'm just trying to watch the meeting.
Ginny, if you're just trying to watch the meeting, it will be easier for you to watch it on YouTube.
Okay. I couldn't get to the YouTube though.
Okay, well then stay right where you are. Amy, Tracy Smith, please. Tracy Smith, good afternoon. Do you have comments on the process of this meeting? Okay. We'll move to Mr. Malbin, Tim Malbin. Tim, can you hear me? Is everyone satisfied that we've received public comment?
Yes,
Satisfied as well.
Yes.
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 Thank you. We have a motion on, Mr. Murphy, would you like to remake your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I don't have it in front of me now, but I'd like to approve the adoption of resolution number,
20-14.
yes.
A second.
There's a motion by Vice Mayor Murphy and a second by Councilmember Hossafras. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. The motion carries unanimously. Okay. Amy, is there a way to mute anyone's microphone from the public who is not speaking, because we're getting a little bit of feedback? So Jackie, Megan Miller, if you can hear me, please mute your microphone. We hear you typing. Okay, Amy, I'm going to ask you to pull everybody out of the meeting now until we, oh, no, leave them there because then they can't hear it. But I see you're muting. Thank you, Jackie, for muting. Megan, please mute. Thank you. Tracy's muted. Mr. Mount. Okay, we seem to be fine here. I've got Jackie up in 2 spots. Much better. Okay. We're going to move on to the next resolution, which is the, Mr. Herron, it is the, can you tell me the number? I'm looking here at
Order number 2.
order number 2. So hold on one second.
Declaration of Emergency Regulations number 2, COVID-19 state of emergency.
Yes, just give me one moment. What I want to tell you in advance is that this is, okay. I'm going to read this for the record.
Could I make a suggestion to save time?
Yes.
I think the only part you need to read is the part under now, therefore it is ordered. The whereases are all similar every time.
They're exactly the same as our very first declaration. You're right, Roxanne. Mr. Herron, is that agreeable?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So this is our declaration number 2, and I'm going to read it now, especially for the benefit of Mr. Malbin. Jackie, Lezak, please nod if you can hear me. Jackie's going to nod. Okay, here we go. Now, therefore, it is ordered. All parties engaged in the rental of public lodging establishments as defined in section 509.013, paren 4, paren A of the Florida statutes as transient or non-transient lodging, and any vacation and timeshare accommodations as defined in section 721.05, paren 1, Florida statutes, shall cancel all existing reservations and refrain from accepting new guests or making new reservations for the duration of this declaration. Any guests of such accommodations that have checked in as of 11:59 p.m. Monday, March 30th, may remain for the duration of their stay. This closure order includes, but is not limited to, single-family or multifamily homes, condominiums, timeshares or vacation rentals, and any other place of public accommodation for lodging, including any bed and breakfast, resort housing, inn, hotel, motel, or other establishment that provides lodging to transient guests. This prohibition does not affect the ability of an owner of a condominium, timeshare, or any other property from staying in his or her own property, some or all of the restricted period, nor any lodging of first responders or employees. All residents and visitors of the town of Fort Myers Beach are directed to comply with these emergency regulations and necessary measures, which shall be strictly enforced, and to cooperate with public officials and public safety personnel in executing any emergency operational plans, and to obey and comply with the lawful direction of all properly identified public officers. 3, in accordance with applicable state law, sections 1 through 12 and 12 through 25 of the Code of Ordinances of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Article 5 of Chapter 2 of the Land Development Code of Fort Myers Beach. Any violation of any rule or regulation issued and set forth herein may be punishable by a fine up to $5,000. This emergency declaration does not modify or otherwise supersede any prior declaration. This emergency declaration shall be effective starting 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, March 31st, 2020, and stay in effect until rescinded by the town council. Now that I've read that into the record, let me just point out for the public watching, those people who are present in our meeting room, that this is a clarification of the governor's order. It is also more directly aligned with what the city of Sanibel put into place. And in discussions with Roger and Mr. Herron, we felt it was essential because as one community shifts, another community is affected. More importantly, it gives very specific guidelines to our hoteliers, our accommodation experts, as to what is permitted and or accepted. So I've read that into the record now. I'd like to hear what each of you have to say, and then we will take some public comment. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Murphy.
My comments on the resolution itself?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm in favor of it. I'm in favor of it. I think it's the right thing to do. I think in actuality, we're almost there already, but it certainly doesn't hurt to make it official. And I believe that, as was stated earlier, most of the hoteliers and the business people already agree to this matter. From a practical matter, the beach is pretty well shut down now anyhow with the Sandy Beach itself closed. I don't know why in God's name anybody would want to come here right now. But we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as far as keeping out other people from the island. So we're going to do our part to protect our citizens, and this is part of the puzzle. So I am in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joanne?
Yes, I'm also in favor. I have a couple of concerns, however. I agree. We're the #1 vacation location, and with schools out and people not working, we have a perpetual spring break and summer vacation opportunity, and we have to protect our local resources, especially Lee Health and the fire and police resources that we have. So my two concerns are this: with regard to, therefore it is ordered in #1, the word refrain from accepting, does refrain mean prohibited? I want to make sure that that's clear.
Hold on, Joanne. Mr. Herron?
Yes, if you want, we can say prohibit, but that's the intent.
Okay, I would prefer it be clear, if we're going for clarity, that it's prohibited. And then secondarily, accepting new guests or new reservations for the duration of this, I think it's also accepting new reservations or extending existing reservations for people who are already here.
Thank you for both of those topics, Joanne.
And I have another, I'm not done.
Go ahead.
And then with regard, I've had calls today, a couple of calls three as a matter of fact. The one with timeshares, they essentially, in our code, if you look, they consider parcelizations of hotels and motels. I believe timeshares should be included. I've had conversation with the timeshares.
It is
and
included.
They want, no, it says if the individual can stay in their own unit.
I see what you're saying.
The timeshares are basically a parcelization. If you have 50 units in 50 weeks, that's 2,500 families that can come in. And I've actually had a request from the timeshare managers that they be included, because even when they offered a refund, people are still trying to come and trying to rent extra units to bring entire family groups. Some of them own 3 timeshares, so they create groups of 20 by collecting their 3 or 4 timeshares that they own, that they usually come at the same week every year, or do these things and have large gatherings. So I would include timeshares, and I think the basis is within the code, considering them as to be parcelizations of hotel and motels in concept. And so I guess Mr. Herron can opine on that. The other thing is, I had a call from a condo, or a feedback from a condo unit today, where a family from New York checked in, and they've sort of taken over the pool, and they're supposed to be quarantined, and they're wondering what the process is. The condos are very upset to have guests in there. And I think that the other thing we need to do before we're done today is state very clearly what the process is for complaints. For a single family house, I know the sheriff had to go to a single family home. For people that are refusing to leave the rental accommodation, claiming that they're COVID-19 positive and saying that they cannot be moved, they're now quarantining in this short-term rental. So I think that we need to figure out
let's put that Joanne to, yes, let's put that the complaint issue, let's put that down as a separate item.
Okay. And my other thing is reservations, I think, as of the moment that this passes, I think, is that true then? No further reservations from the moment, and no extensions of stays from the moment this passes?
So you would prefer that instead of the declaration being effective at essentially 12:01 a.m. tonight, you would prefer that it say effective immediately? Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to back up now. Mr. Herron, we have, would you all just please raise your hand, or no, tell me, does everyone accept a change from refrain to prohibit?
Sure.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yes.
Okay, Mr.
Yes.
Herron, we're going to make that change.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I may. And if all parties engaged in the rental of public lodging establishments as defined in section 509-0134A Florida statutes as transient or non-transient lodging and any vacation and timeshare accommodations as defined in section 721.051 Florida statutes shall cancel all existing reservations and not extend existing stays, nor accept new guests or new reservations for the duration of this declaration.
That takes out, that hits 2 of Joanne's points. Does anyone disagree with that rewording?
Fine.
No.
Oh.
John, now let's talk about the timeshare issue. That's a very valid point. We listed them, but then we put it back in when we said owners. What can you do about that?
We can take out timeshare and say this prohibition does not affect the ability of an owner of a condominium or single family or multifamily unit from staying in his or her own property. The timeshares are excluded.
That's
Does
fine.
that satisfy everyone?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And the last one had to do with the pools, and perhaps that's a separate issue. I also have had several people ask about pools. I do know that there are, I know of at least one condominium association in the Bay Beach area that has closed their pool because of this reason.
I think that's a separate issue.
Okay, I'm going to thank you, Rexanne. We'll put it down under the complaint zone. All right. So,
Thank you. That's all for me.
okay. Rexanne, do you have any issues?
No, I'd be willing to move this, this order forward as a motion, including the 3 amendments as requested by Joanne and read by Mr. Herron.
Rexanne, can you just hold that for a moment? Because we're going to have to take public comment. Let's see if
I have a question.
Remember, the rule said that we have to take public comment before we vote. We could go ahead and make the motion so that it's clear what the motion is before they give their public comment.
Thank you, Rexanne.
Right.
Bruce,
I'll
did you
second
have,
it.
Yes.
So motion by Councilmember Hossafrost and seconded by Vice Mayor Murphy. Bruce, do you
Yes.
have comment?
Yes. I'm puzzled by the duration. That's open-ended completely. And, you know, to be factual, if people are trying to make reservations for 2021, you can't.
We debated that this morning. We decided not to put a close date on it simply because it could change. But it's a good point. I had 2 emails. About that, whether or not hoteliers could accept reservations for, let's say, November, Christmas.
Yeah.
So, John, what are your thoughts on that?
Whatever you all want. I'm already making the change that this emergency declaration will be effective immediately. And you know, whatever date that you all direct, I can plug in.
So let me ask you a question. To be consistent with the city of Sanibel, should we put the 28 days in? And the president has also gone to the end of April. Do we try, maybe we use the end of April as the date, since that was one of the president's moves today? What do you think?
I have a comment, if you don't mind.
Please.
The Florida State Attorney General stated today that the peak of the virus in the state of Florida, he expects to be mid-May. So the end of April will not work. I would say, you know, if we want to make it 3 or 4 months or something, but this is not a short term. This is months, not weeks. And so I would not do that. I mean, if you want to do it for till October 1st or something for now, and then when it's lifted, people can flood in. But this is not a short-term problem.
Bruce, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I would just think 90 days, say that you cannot accept reservations in the next 90 days for the next 90-day period. And then if something happens more a month from now, you review it again. And if you got to knock it out another 60 days or something, you do that. I mean, you're really tying people's hands to say, by the letter of the law, that they can't take any reservations anytime in the future is what this says. And that seems a little difficult.
I'm willing to accept Bruce's 90 days as a friendly amendment.
I would prefer 120.
Ray, how do you feel about 90 days?
I'm okay with that. I have some other thoughts about it, but I'll go along with that for now.
Okay.
It's subject. It's all subject to review as we go along anyhow.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
It's gonna,
Absolutely.
you know, it's gonna be, it's
Correct.
gonna remain fluid.
Yes.
I mean, they want us to give them a date certain that we cannot do.
That's right.
We cannot give us a date certain. So, you know,
So
the hotel people. I mean,
Okay, so let's
if we do, even if we do 90 days though, if the health situation doesn't improve, people should understand it may be extended.
That's
well,
correct.
it. It's fluid. It has to, I mean, we have to rely on what the experts are telling us, and you know, we can't just be pigeonholed today as to a date. It's impossible.
But the other thing, if you put a timeline on it, then as things changed, you can come back in and say, you know, here's our new revision. It's now plus another 90 days, and any reservation taken after the initial 90 days is canceled.
That's exactly right, Bruce. That's exactly right. could also be modified if come May 15th, things have miraculously improved. So all of this can be modified by the next council. Mr. Hearns?
Madam Mayor, thank
Yes.
you. I just want to mention that you have two holidays, one in May, Memorial Day, and one July 4th weekend.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to encapsulate those in this current date set or not.
Mhm. I will tell you, I'm getting two different, I'm going to say this for the record. I've received a message from Tommy Kohler at the Lighthouse who says 90 days would be better. We can revise it. Jeannie at the Outrigger is asking for 45 days. Jackie Lezak did give a thumbs up about 90 days, but let's start with 90 days. Rexanne amended the motion. Mr. Murphy, you agree with the amendment for the motion, at least for
Yes.
discussion and public comment? Okay, so
Yes.
I'm going to ask for public comment now. So I'm going to ask Jackie to come on again. Amy, if you could unmute Jackie.
I'm here.
Jackie, do you have comment on the motion on the floor?
I agree we have to close everything down in order to get across the board and keep it similar. My concern about not taking advanced reservations, and I think everyone could live with the 90 days, but if they were able to take reservations for June, and it puts a little bit of money in advanced deposits in people's pockets to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Something to consider. We also do have the July 4th holiday looming, so I would hate to see us not allow July 4th reservations, because again, that puts a little bit of advance money in folks' pockets so that it gives everybody something to look forward to. I do, however, agree that it needs to be stressed that should this continue on, anybody who does make those reservations 90 days out may need to cancel them and do what we're doing now, which is refunding and replacing or, pushing people out further in the year. I know that a lot of the folks had reservations in this time frame, and people are changing those to be into the summer, August, September, October time frame. So I think 6 months would be too much, because that way you're at least able to shift people out 6 months and bring them here when it's traditionally slower for us.
Okay. I do want to tell you that I have also heard from Amy Lowry at Distinctive Rentals, who agrees with the 90-day terms. Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Amy, could you unmute Tim Malbin? Jackie, if you can hear me, could you please reach out to Mr. Malbin and see if he has comment? I've asked him twice now and we've not heard anything. So
I will. I'll call him.
Perhaps he doesn't. Okay. Amy, could you unmute the phone number that ends in 0344? I think that was Mr. Shaley. Yes.
Hello.
Hello again. Do you have comment on the current motion on the floor, sir?
Actually, I do. I understand the position of the former caller, but I disagree with the opinion that the island should be open for business come 4th of July. I just think that this is, as one of the other council members explained, this is in months and not weeks. And I think that giving the false hope that this is going to magically go away before the 4th of July is really nothing but wishful thinking, because this is so contagious and so serious that I really think that our island not only should be not conducting 4th of July activities, but I really think that we should even be more extreme. And I have put that into an email that will probably be read during public comment as well. But I honestly think that the island should be locked down from anyone that's not living on this island.
Okay.
I truthfully think that only island residents at this time should be here, and everyone else encouraged to go home, stay home, just like we want to do, so we can all stay safe.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your comment.
Who's that speaker?
Mr. Shaley.
My name.
Mr. Shaley. Okay.
Tim Shadle.
Tim
Oh,
Shadle.
was-
Shadle, not Shaley.
He sounded different that time than he did the
Yes, he
first
did.
time.
Okay, so Amy, if you could please unmute Judith. Let's see if Judith has a comment. And I would ask the folks who who don't wish to comment, if they would please watch this on YouTube as opposed to here on this screen, because then I won't constantly come to you. Okay, Judith, Amy, could you take Judith off the screen, please? Megan Miller could also go off the screen. She's a reporter. Matt Love is standing by in case we need him. And Jackie is. Michelle, do you have any comments or any public emails to be read into the record relative
Okay, hold on,
to
I'm
this?
texting her.
Mayor, I only have the one that I mentioned earlier, and it's in general regarding COVID-19, maybe more specifically about
Okay, hold on.
Jackie, please mute your microphone. Michelle, would you please read the letter?
Okay, I'm here.
Jackie, please mute your microphone. Thank you. Michelle?
Mayor, this email comment, as I said, is in general. It's not specific to the short-term rentals. It came from Jim Hockett, Hockett, at yahoo.com. Please inform the public on exactly what information you would be considering when deciding on shutting down more businesses for COVID-19. I hope your justification for creating hardship for your citizens isn't the escalating positive COVID-19 tests, because that is simply irresponsible. Justification that this virus has a high transmission rate is likely accurate. However, you would be ignoring the important fact that the virus started in the US in early January, yet we just started testing. The only possible outcome, even if the virus had peaked already, is that we see dramatic escalation of positive tests daily because we started measuring well into the cycle of the disease. So more positive tests is a predetermined outcome and shouldn't be a basis. The argument that the virus is highly contagious actually must force you to responsibly pause and let data drive new decisions, because it means we have a large part of the population that has already had the virus and just not tested. That can only be measured with antibody testing. Have you been pushing for antibody testing? That will not only provide us with accurate mortality rates, possibly as low as influenza, but also tell us how much of the population has herd immunity and can go back to work or help those in need without a concern of spreading the virus. This is what our government should be doing to help resolve this issue instead of feeding fear based on unsubstantiated data. The fact is that we only have 6 deaths in Lee County, which is indeed tragic, but in no way justifies additional restrictions, especially when we have seen new data from the UK indicating the virus is far less severe than originally thought, no longer classified as a highly contagious infectious disease, and mortality estimates changed from 500K to less than 20K. Government is already responsible for closing businesses and creating immense unemployment for its constituents, and many of these are the people who live paycheck to paycheck. To create additional financial burden.
I apologize for interrupting, but this public comment has exceeded 3 minutes by several minutes already, and it seems unfair that we would allow emails to be read that go on and on.
Thank you, Michelle. We'll just submit the rest of his letter for the record. Folks, I have Mr. Malbin. Amy, if you could please unmute Mr. Malbin. from the Best Western. Tim, are you there?
Tim is here. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, I'm more in line with the president's proposal for 28 days to 45 days. What I'm really concerned about is that my key staff and the majority of my staff are able to get on the island. We want to keep our staff working. We have plenty for them to do to get this place up in great shape. And a majority of the SBA lending is based on keeping your staff.
That's right.
So I want to make sure that that is available to us. As with everybody else, we maybe have 1%, 2% in-house, but there's plenty of work for us to get taken care of. And we also, there again, need to let our guests know when they can start rebooking. And I know everything is very fluid. Start out with 30 to 45 days instead of right up to 90 days. That's my comment.
Tim, can you hear me?
Can you hear her, Tim?
Yes.
Tim, thank you very much for those comments. It's Anita. You're echoing a couple of messages that I have received from other hoteliers, Jeannie down at the Outrigger and others. Mr. Heron, could you just clarify for our hotel partners and all accommodation partners that if I'm stating this correctly, that this action is relative to reservations and incoming guests and does not pertain to the employees being there on property. Can you clarify that, John? Heron is not. John, you don't?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm back
okay.
on. You are correct. It only is a prohibition on the specific activities listed, the rentals, reservations, and accepting new guests.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Jackie, if you'll mute again and thank Tim for us very much. Do we have anyone else waiting to give comment? I don't see anyone. Michelle or Amy? Anybody?
I have no further public comment.
I just want to reflect for the record, the messages I'm receiving is kind of a mixed bag here between 28 and 45 and 90 days. Getting a message about 90 days would eliminate European business for the year. I'm wondering, again, to be consistent with either Sanibel or the president or somebody, if we pick a different number and encapsulate in this motion the caution that it could be. Let's see, what does Boudreaux think? And encapsulate in this that if we, for example, do as Sanibel did and say 28 days, or we go to 45 days, like the president did, that this is subject to change. And any reservation taken beyond that is subject to change. Can we do that?
Anita, if I might, as you know, I'm really linked into the healthcare
yes.
folks. And not that the rest of you aren't, I apologize, but 45 days puts us smack into what the Surgeon General states for the state of Florida will be the peak of our virus. It is pie in the sky thinking to expect that in 28 days, 30 days, 45 days, that there is no point in pretending. July 4th is almost ridiculous. The island should switch July 4th to an August celebration and plan on that. We will not be done. We will not be done. And I think we should go to 90 days. The next town council can, according to what transpires with the health system in Florida and our statistics, can adjust accordingly. And I'm sure reservations would flood in.
Thank you. Rexanne, your motion reflects 90 days. Am I correct?
Correct. And I have another comment to make.
Please.
We've given the public specific guidelines on how they are to submit public comment. And I feel uncomfortable with the fact that individual members are getting texts and then reading those. I don't think that's fair. They need to comply with what our rules set forth, that if they're to give public comment, they send us an email or they follow the rules that we're setting forth.
Fair game. Fair comment. Thank you.
I agree, Rexanne.
Thank you.
And Anita,
yes.
Anita, the other thing I want to state, and I know I'm the wet blanket all the time, but
no, Joanne, you're not the wet
they're
blanket.
talking about the federal and state officials say that these pandemics come in waves.
Yes.
And when they look at the previous pandemics, that's been the case. And if that's the case, we may have another wave coming even after our peak. And I just want people to recognize this is not days or weeks. This is months. And that's why 90 days is a very appropriate thing. We're more likely to have a wonderful Labor Day celebration if we're fortunate.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor that is that puts 90 days into place. Do you all feel like we need to take further action to memorialize Mr. Malbin's concern about employee interaction on the properties?
I feel that the way it was written is very clear. It's unfortunate he doesn't have it in front of him to read it, but it's very clear that he's allowed to have his employees on the property.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you, Rick. Bruce, did you have a comment?
No, I agree.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. I'd like to have a roll call vote, please. Rexanne, maker of the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Joanne?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
And I affirm. It's a unanimous vote. I'd like to just ask our community members, first of all, I'd like to thank them. I'd like to thank them most sincerely for being so proactive in their efforts for our town. I'd also like to tell them that this will likely be revisited on a very regular basis, and that their comments and contributions will be appreciated in the weeks and months to come. So thank you all for that. Okay, let's move on to the third resolution you have, or declaration you have in front of you. This is a declaration of emergency regulations number 3. This declaration is largely aspirational. Had a long conversation this morning with several people about aspiring to further protect our town, and what this declaration simply does is memorialize on paper what we are telling people on a daily basis. It doesn't have penalties, it doesn't have effective dates, it is simply memorializing in the form of the declaration what we have been telling people now for 2 weeks, which is to stay at home. This is, well, I'm going to do as Rexanne suggested in the last effort, and simply the beginning of this is all the same as the other previous regulations have been. I'm going to go down to the section where it says, now therefore be it ordered. Persons residing, number 1, persons residing or visiting the town of Fort Myers Beach are urged to remain in their dwelling units, except as necessary to seek medical care, food, and essential needs. 2, resident and visitors shall adhere to social distancing practices, washing their hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, or using hand sanitizer, covering coughs and sneezes into the sleeve or elbow, not the hands, regularly cleaning high-touch surfaces and not shaking hands. Residents and visitors are strongly encouraged to limit all of their travel, except as necessary. This emergency declaration does not modify or otherwise supersede any prior emergency declaration. And this emergency declaration would be effective starting at 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, March 31st, 2020, and stay in effect until rescinded by the town council. So many of you likely, including the people who are watching at home, likely watched the county commission meeting this morning. Essentially, this is what they are saying without putting it in written form. It is what all of the municipalities have been saying. It's what the entire nation is saying. I'm simply putting this forward to you because I have received an enormous amount of emails and telephone calls from people encouraging us to do something as dramatic as close the bridge, which of course we recognize is all but impossible. And we have,
about that.
but they're asking us to take another step. Again, this is simply memorializing what we've been saying for 2 weeks now. Now, with that, I will just ask for your comments. Mr. Murphy.
Well, naturally, I'm all for supporting this. If it's just to memorialize what we're all doing already and everything else, I'm fine with that. But your comment about not closing the bridge, I mean, we do it all the time. Every time there's a hurricane, there's damage on the beach and so forth, we limit people coming onto the island. So I mean, it can happen. If people don't think it can happen, they're wrong, because it can happen. So, but anyhow, be that as it may, I will support this declaration, and hope that everybody adheres to it. We're all doing pretty well down here. I mean, as far as compliance here, right? But there will be people coming in and out and so forth, and I presume the road construction will continue, and there'll be other functions going on, and so that there will be people traversing our island, as usual, but it is limited. I'll tell you, I walked the dog last night, and I saw one person on that walk, one, and on the sidewalk, and that's highly unusual.
Mm-hmm.
So it is working as it is, and hopefully with God's help, we'll get through this with as little damage as possible. So, but yes, Madam Chair, I will support this declaration. Thank you.
Ray, if I could, Roger and John and I have been talking about all of this for this. I think this is like 3 days we've been dealing with this, and one of the things that we kept coming back to was that, as elected officials, we make rules for the majority of people. There's always going to be someone who speeds, who violates the rules. We've seen 99% of the people have obeyed the close the beach rule. Today, I received several emails from people saying that they were sorry for their previous emails talking about, you shouldn't have done this, but if we only were dealing with people who followed the rules, that would be great. But the fact of the matter is, there are those that don't. And so I think that by memorializing what we have been saying, it just makes it much clearer to people.
Yes.
So, okay. Bruce, do you have comments?
I have no comment.
Rexanne, do you have a comment?
I do. If this goes on as long as Joanne is predicting, one of the things that I'm concerned about is mental health.
Yes.
And this resolution really even seems to discourage that people should go outside and walk, or even walk their dog, as Mr. Murphy does.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we may need to consider that. In addition, I have been contacted by many residents who have proposed that we do a minor change to our beach closure, in that they wish to be able to walk on the beach between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. I don't think that's unreasonable, seeing that the beach closure did accomplish what we wanted it to do.
So Roxanne, can we add that to the list of how to deal with complaints and pool closures as an additional item?
It seems to fall under this resolution, because this resolution says you can't even go outside and exercise. So that's why I brought it up now.
There is a catch-all there in that first paragraph. The catch-all is "and other essential needs." Now, if walking a dog is an essential need, I don't know what is.
I would think it might be, but I think there are people who would argue with you about that and say, oh, you can only let your dog out in the backyard.
Okay.
So,
and Roxanne, I brought this very issue up with Mr. Herron just this morning. I said, do we need to specifically say, of like me, I'm looking at my backyard right now. Am I not supposed to go out there? Well, of course I'm supposed to go out there. So John, I'd like you to address this issue that Roxanne has raised. We talked about it this morning.
Yes, I appreciate all your comments and your concerns. Right now, as was mentioned, this is aspirational in nature. You know, if there are individuals or people or businesses that you know continue or don't comply with the rule and don't observe social distancing, as was mentioned before, then the council may have to take more extreme action. To the extent that other communities have taken that action, there's been a specific carve out. But since we're not there yet, there's nothing in the proposed declaration that says you can't walk. It's just simply saying we're urging people to observe social distancing and shelter in place.
John, I have to say I disagree with you, because the word ordered is in there in bold black letters and all caps. And despite the fact that we don't have any penalty, if you've been ordered not to do something, a law enforcement officer could pick up somebody on the street because he's having a bad day and say, you're violating a town order, I'm taking you downtown. You know, and obviously they couldn't keep you, et cetera, but
Roxanne, do you feel better with resolved as opposed to ordered?
Sure.
Okay, I agree with you, but I also think, John, that we're not really addressing when we say that we're asking them to remain in their dwelling units. I think this needs to be expanded. I think that needs to say, instead of dwelling units, what if we said property? What if we put back in the language here about well, you know what? I'm just going to let you think about that for a second. I'm going to go to Joanne. Joanne?
Okay. You know, everybody knows we're not supposed to talk about our own properties, but I'm going to. I sit here on my property looking at the beach every day, so I know very intimately what's going on. If I would love to go for a walk on the beach, it has taken a long time to get control of the beach. And the headline, if we partially open the beach, is going to be Fort Myers Beach partially reopens beach for public activity. We cannot do this.
That's not the word I used. That's not the word I used. I said residents. I did not say open to the public.
But there is no way to enforce this. Which town staff, which sheriff is going to stop and check driver's licenses or anything else? I couldn't be more opposed. Closing the beach has been, and if you saw the Lee County meeting this morning, they showed a picture of our beach as the biggest success in shutting down the spread of coronavirus in the county. This is not the time to relent on this. Everybody likes to go for a walk on the beach. I do too. My husband and I do every day, but not right now. Keeping the beach closed is critical. And if you start opening it up to activity on private property, you really have a problem. I can't stress how strongly I feel about that. Okay. Now moving on, and we can get back to that in a moment, but it's my turn to speak, so I have a couple other things to say. I'm reporting on things that I'm hearing that are still issues, and they relate to this wording here, I think. First of all, some of the restaurants with takeout, are still have benches and chairs or seats where people are sitting waiting to get their food, or they're congregating in the right of way on the sidewalk, and they are not keeping 6 foot separation at all. There's large groups of people parking in the right of way, standing and bunching together. And I'm wondering if there is some wording, and I would put this back to Mr. Herron, if there's some wording with regard to our restaurants and takeouts that they must follow the social distancing. They have to create some program. In other words, if you don't have enough room to spread out your customers, you don't have enough room to provide takeout. I guess is my point. I'm not sure how we get to that. The second issue, then, I guess I have 4 that I'm going to talk about. Public parking lots. People are starting to bring chairs and gather in the parking lots on the island. And there's one hotel restaurant that's been mentioned, actually, where people are gathering and partying spread out in the parking lot. I mentioned that in passing to see if anybody has a concern. The complaint or concern I get is church gatherings, no gatherings over 10. I am a woman of faith, so please, no one, please take this as an affront to the right to gather for religious purposes. But I think that churches have got to figure out, either spread out their services so there's only 10 people at a time, spread out more than 6 feet, or I don't know. I'm making a list and people can comment on it.
I've been in contact with all the pastors. I don't know of any church on the island that is holding religious services.
Okay, I heard one, but that's good news, Rexanne. I think that's imperative that we have the conversation, however. And then the final one, and Roxanne, this is a topic dear to your heart, and I think it's important. We have a homeless population on this island. I don't know how they're being fed, how they're being kept socially distant. I don't know how they're housed, since we have a no camping ordinance. The news, the reason I said this is right on the news last night, they reported how many homeless were sleeping overnight on Fort Myers Beach. They reported exact numbers and said they have photographs or whatever. It's a topic of conversation, and we need to be careful that the homeless are cared for, but that we're not drawing more homeless here. So I guess my other question would be perhaps to Rexanne, since she is the liaison really to the church group, that maybe you might comment with regard to that. So those are all my questions. I open it back to you, the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Rexanne, would you comment on that, please? I know you've been working with everyone.
The churches continue to help out. And I want to stress this. Everybody keeps using the word homeless. The churches don't ask whether you have a roof over your head when you come there and ask for food. They are continuing to give out food, and they don't ask. They just say, are you hungry? Here's food. Chapel by the Sea is passing out bag lunches at their normal times, but they are not having people come into the church or congregating. My understanding is that Beach Baptist is helping the Lee County schools pass out the food that the school would be passing out. And they also have been distributing food through their normal market once a week. Again, they are doing social distancing. Everybody's doing the best they can along these lines. It breaks my heart that we're going to even talk about how many homeless there are having to sleep outside at this point. I can't imagine how frightening it must be to be a homeless person right now.
Yes, homeless or underfed, underserved in all those areas, Rexanne. I recognize that. And as I said, I just want to make sure that if our restaurants are doing social distancing, no indoor seating, takeout only or whatever, that we're also protecting the vulnerable population with the same regulations, equally and fairly. And I wanted to hear from you, Rexanne, because I cannot talk to you privately, since you are the liaison to the churches on these issues. So thank you for that feedback.
Rexanne?
Yes.
Could I just ask you, I know that Pastor Kritzer at the Beach Baptist Church also has his pantry open. Can you just comment on anything you might know about that particular? Maybe if
That's-
Sean hears
I mentioned that. Maybe I didn't.
I'm sorry, I just heard chapel. Go ahead.
The Beach Baptist Church is distributing food in several different ways. One for the school district, another through their regular programs where they have breakfast for people at different times, especially Sundays. And they also are continuing to run their fresh market, which is basically a type of grocery store. People don't come there and eat, they come and get food and leave. So they have continued that as well.
Okay.
I also just put up on Facebook before this meeting a list I got from the Homeless Coalition of Lee County of various places throughout Lee County that you can go and get food on different days and at different locations. And I also shared that to the Best of Fort Myers Beach page.
Thank you so much, Roxanne. It's a, talk about the forgotten land of people. Okay, so Roxanne, you also confirmed that to the best of your knowledge, there are no churches currently holding services. Ray, Church of the Ascension is not holding services, are they?
There's not a Catholic church in the Diocese of Venice holding Mass. Hasn't been for a couple of weeks.
Thank you for that, Ray.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, and the other issue that Joanne raised was the public parking lots. I'm not sure how we address that here. Roger?
Madam Mayor, we are going, when we're not patrolling the beach, we're going around to the restaurants and making sure that their tables that they would ordinarily be serving their customers at are being removed so that they're not creating a scenario whereby a customer would take a takeout meal and then stay right there and eat it at the restaurant. We're also talking to the restaurateurs about making sure that their property does not become sort of a picnic ground, even without tables, after people get their takeout meals. To ensure that we maintain social distancing. The restaurant limitations, as you well know, have been enacted by the governor, and if we can't get voluntary cooperation, our enforcement measure would be to notify the Department of Health, which oversees the restaurants, and advise them that a particular restaurant doesn't appear to be complying with the governor's order.
Joanne, you had a fourth one. I think I missed it.
No, I think that was it. It was the parking lots and restaurants, which I think Roger just grouped. Oh, and standing in the right of way, parking and standing in the right of way. We have some in the downtown zoning district core that are overflowing on the sidewalk so that people cannot keep social distance when they walk down the sidewalk. I had that complaint. So it sounds like Roger will handle those types of complaints, and that people are parking in the right of way to stop and pick up their orders rather than parking in a legal parking spot. So it sounds like Roger has that under control. Thank you.
So we'll come back to all of that also, and when we talk about what exactly do people do when they're looking to essentially file a complaint about someone walking on the beach, or the sidewalks, or whatever. Okay.
I guess I'd like to hear from the other council members about whether they would be willing to allow people to walk between 7 and 9 a.m. on the beach.
Roxanne, I'll just start off and tell you what I think about that. From day one, Roger and John, Matt Love has been part of that discussion. We have talked about how to allow that to happen. And it's a matter of timing. And I suspect that it's going to be at some point, not now, but at some point in the future, with you and Ray and the 3 council members elect, to find that happy balance, because I believe that that will be possible. I just don't think it's possible right now. Ray, do you have a comment?
I'm of the same mind. I would like to hope that sometime after Easter, there might be some relaxation on that. But right now, if you crack the beach open, they're going to come. It's my view.
You know, Rexanne, somebody said to me the other day, wouldn't it be great if you let everyone who's got one of these, you know, We Are FMB shirts, that's kind of like your pass for the beach. And I thought, oh yeah, well it's a little too loose. But you know, there are ways to identify residents on the island, and I suspect that conversation is for you to have sometime in the future, right? What do you think?
Well, you know, the beach is like everything else. You don't realize how much you love it and enjoy it until it's taken away and you don't have it anymore. And
That's for sure.
And that's certainly the case here with all of us and everybody else for that matter. And you know, there's nothing I'd rather do than wave a wand and say everybody can go out on the beach. But you know, I understand the concern of the people that have contacted you, Rexanne, and of course we've all gotten all kinds of emails from different people and so forth. But I just don't see how it's possible. I mean, we're trying to set the example here and keep this train running in the same direction. And I agree with the previous comments that if you allow people to come out now, you're just going to open up the floodgates. Now, people will disagree with that. Well, you know, we're just going to go out for our little walk and get back in off the beach, you know. But it's a lot easier to enforce total compliance than partial compliance, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think at this juncture that we can deviate. Now, like what was said earlier, hopefully if things start to improve where we can start relaxing it, that would be great. But I tend to agree with Joanne that we're not even close to this thing maxing out yet. I mean, the worst is ahead for us, and we just don't know how soon that is. Although the professionals seem to say that it's within weeks. So, I mean, I think we just have to take everything slow right now, keep it status quo, and just keep this train going on the tracks that it is right now, and hopefully hopefully we can look to that time in the future where we can open it up again. But I just don't see that happening right now on a partial basis. I don't see how that would work. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the way I feel. Thank you.
I guess I have more faith in my fellow man than the rest of you do.
No, that's not it, Rexanne. That's not
I have to say, and I have to say this, those of us on this part of the island have no sidewalks to walk on, have no place to walk because of the construction zone that is the south end of the island from Publix on down. We're walking over chunks of concrete. We're walking in the street. There is no place to walk down here.
Well, that's not necessarily true, Rex.
I've been out there. I'm trying to find a place.
I walk past your house just about every night on your side street. That's what I've been encouraging people to do down on our end. They say they can't walk. All they have to do is cross the street and walk down our side streets. I have people that I've never seen on this island before walking past my house every night, and I yell down, "Hello, how are you?" and so forth. There are plenty of places to walk. I mean, it's just cross the street and walk in the neighborhoods. We have a sidewalk on our side of the street as well, on the eastern side of Estero Boulevard. Walk it. Walk in the neighborhoods. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room to walk.
Okay, let's move on from this. Let me circle back, please, Mr. Herron. If you could please address the other issue that we spoke about this morning that Rexanne raised here this afternoon, relative to outside exercise, mental health, how important it is to be able to move about, and suggested wording you might have for that, because I think as well it's super important. John, you must be muted.
I did. I keep forgetting to unmute myself.
That's okay.
That's correct, Mayor. First, to the issue that was previously discussed, the declaration will now say, now therefore the town council recommends that 1, 2, 3, et cetera.
Okay.
Then also put in, persons residing or visiting the town of Fort Myers Beach remain in their dwelling units or on their property, in parentheses, excluding the beach, except as necessary to seek medical care, food, and other essential needs. consistent with the discussion that just took place. And then I'm suggesting to, if the council agrees, to put in a new paragraph 3 that would say residents and visitors, just made it. Residents and visitors may engage in outdoor activity and recreation areas not otherwise closed to the public, but urged to maintain a distance of at least 6 feet between each other, including without limitations, walking, hiking, running, or cycling. Groups of 10 or more individuals may not gather on a public street, alley, public way, sidewalk, or government facility open to the public. And I believe that addresses Rexanne's concerns as well as Joanne's.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Joe.
The excluding beach, once again, we have to do the longer definition, which is, see where the coastal construction line, to stay consistent, please, with our beach closure order, because, thank you very much.
Roxanne?
I have nothing to say.
Okay. Anyone else have anything? But Roxanne, is that better for the outside element?
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on that?
Nope. It's good.
Okay. So John, could you just read now for me from now therefore the town council recommends?
Yes, it's now therefore the town council recommends that 1, persons residing or visiting the town of Fort Myers Beach remain in their dwelling units or on their property, excluding the beach. And
John,
yes,
I forgot one thing I wanted to bring up before you do that, just to see if anybody has anything on this. Boating. So there was a lot of concern from the sheriff, the other municipalities relative to boating. We don't have any public boat ramps that aren't already closed. For example, the Mound House. But is there any comments on boating at this point? Because people are really wondering, are they allowed to go boating? My answer would be yes, of course. You're likely going boating with your family, your friends, but then of course you see a pontoon boat with 40 people in it. So I don't know how that's, now I do know that the sheriff was monitoring that heavily this weekend. So I'd just like to hear comments on that if anybody has anything.
Sorry.
No, my comment is, there's nothing that in this declaration that either prohibits it or specifically says it's allowed.
Okay.
We're still operating under the social distancing rules that the governor has set in place and that you all have set in place, and until such time as you will further limit or close down businesses or et cetera, assuming we get to that point, then there's nothing here that says that you can't vote.
May I?
Yes.
Mayor, I wasn't it Lee County who just did the 50 feet apart boats. I think the concern is boats rafting, number 1, and number 2, boat rentals to groups larger than 10. What we're seeing is pontoon boats that have the big party boats that have 20 people on them and the big excursion boats. And I think that that's an issue, and perhaps that needs to be addressed somehow. I mean, that should fit under the gatherings too large. Those are the 2 issues that I've had complaints about and concerns about.
If they're outside of our boundaries, of course, we can't do anything about it, but I do know that the sheriff is dealing with this very closely, and perhaps we leave this in his hands. Any objection to that?
That would be my thought.
Agreed.
I have no idea where these boat rentals come from with all the people that we've excluded from the island already. I mean, I don't.
Come from Bonita.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Bonita.
Yeah.
I agree, Anita. I just thought it should be mentioned since you mentioned boating.
I agree. Okay, so if I could circle back to one other issue that we maybe should touch on here as we talk about outdoors, and that is the issue of pools. What Joanne brought up earlier about people, quote, taking over pools. I'd like to think that condominium associations have some authority on their own to handle that. We don't have any our public pool is closed. Any comment on the pool issue, Rexanne?
I think the condos should take care of their own pool issues.
Bruce?
I agree. I agree.
I agree.
Bruce agrees. Joanne?
I do agree that the condos need to do that. But I will ask that we try to get back to the issue of the condo that has mentioned that they have problems because visitors just arrived from New York and they're in the pool, which clearly they have not quarantined themselves. So that was my only issue with regard to pools. If we can get back to that conversation of what a condo can do in that case where the cat's already out of the bag.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment because that kind of falls into our other questions category. So any other questions on this particular resolution? And everyone understands that we're simply memorializing here for the public what we have been saying since we closed the Shrimp Festival. John, okay, I'm going to see if there's any public comment on this first, unless Rexanne or someone or Ray, would somebody like to make a motion first and then we can go to the public comment?
I'll move declaration number 3 as amended by John.
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. So now people know where we are. Is there anyone in, so I see Jackie Lisak is still here. I have, let's unmute Maxine, please. And see if Maxine has any comments. Maxine, can you hear me? Maxine? Okay, let's mute Maxine again. Let's unmute Tony. Is there a Tony? Tony? I think these people are just watching the meeting. I'd like to...
Excuse me, Mayor Siricida?
Yes.
Tony submitted through the chat line. So that may be what he's wanting to comment.
Oh, canceling reservations. Let's see. So just to clarify, we would
be canceling all reservations that are due to come into the hotels for the next 90 days under this proposed question mark.
That's accurate.
Beginning immediately. Even today, no new check-ins, right?
That is accurate, yes. So I'd like to bring Jackie Lisak is unmuted. So Jackie, you're the next speaker, please.
If you can hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to ask the town council to revisit this every 30 days regarding the 90-day moratorium. Just to put it on the schedule and to revisit it. There's going to be a hardship for a lot of the businesses out here with a 90-day restriction. So if I would respectfully request that every 30 days it be revisited and potential changes be made to it if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I'm putting that on our additional list. Could we unmute Chief Love, please? Matt Love. Chief, are you there?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good.
So, Chief Love, I just wanted to ask you if you have any comments. You know, we recognize that this recommendation is simply memorializing our verbal conversations with the public, but putting it into a forum where someone could actually refer to it, and perhaps it gives a unified statement as opposed to Roger or me or someone else making a comment. Do you have any comments on this, Matt?
Mine would only be to echo the sentiments you just shared. This is definitely consistent with all the information that the fire department has put out. And similarly to what we see at the county level or even higher than that, we feel most community members that ask us questions feel like things are still kind of suggestions or guidance right now. And in the lack of a formal document, sometimes that's how our community reacts. So I think memorializing it, as you said, hits the nail on the head of kind of saying this is the formal position of our town. And just again, speaking on behalf of the fire department, this is definitely consistent with our wishes and the messages we've been sending out. So I think it's well done.
Chief Love, you've been a part of many of the conversations we've had with the other municipalities, the county, and other elected officials. We've shared those conversations, and it's been very important to all of those entities that we kind of remain on the same page and give a unified message. Do you feel that we are veering off of that with this message in any way?
Not particularly. I think the message seems to be, and I hate to use the term maybe push it down, but there has been a lot of sentiments of letting localities make their own decisions. Of course, that is concerning because one locality feels like your initial conversation, if you close the barber shop in Cape Coral, are people going to drive to Fort Myers? And so does that just move the problem around? But I think the specific topic you're discussing right now, I think my feeling or personal belief has been it has been pushed to the localities, the small jurisdictions to make those decisions themselves. Certainly matches the sentiments in the whereas clauses you discussed earlier. We're a lot like other entities in Southwest Florida, but we're unique. We are an international tourist destination, and people want to be here. And I think, in looking out for our community, we have to consider that we are unique in some ways that others may not be. So I think you're absolutely falling in line with what the sentiments have been passed down of make the decisions at the local level whenever possible and look out for your community's best interests, which definitely seems to be in line with the messages you've been sharing.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Chief Love, just out of curiosity? Anyone?
I do, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
There have been concerns in other communities where police and fire and healthcare workers, of course, but police and fire also, their resources are stretched thin, or they're starting to see the virus within their ranks. And I was just wondering if Chief Love might comment on that for the people of Fort Myers Beach about his department.
Chief?
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman, great question. It certainly one weighs heavily on my heart every day as I look at these numbers, because whether we're able to protect our first responders or not is, of course, huge, not just to them, but for transmission in the community. And so, I hate to say it like this, but we're one exposure away from firefighters being quarantined because they respond in groups, and what that does to the response force, of course, domino effect. And so there is no doubt there are shortages in the personal protective equipment. We never thought we would be giving our firefighters directions on how to reuse an N95 mask. Never I thought we would be doing that. But of course, that's better than no mask at all. So the CDC is guiding us on that. We're certainly not inventing how to do that. And then we're all in the same boat, not just countywide, statewide, but nationally, seeing the shortage of personal protective equipment and so forth. So that is definitely a concern. And it's unfortunate that our focus to protect that is, like I said, I think a couple weeks ago, decrease the population, but it's really to limit exposure. Every call they don't have to go on is a call they're not putting on that mask. And every mask they don't put on is one not used. And so that's not just virus related, but in general, as I spoke to before, when people are not out and about, they don't get injured as much. And those are routine calls we're used to, but routine calls we don't treat routine anymore because everybody could potentially have that sickness. And so you hit the nail on the head, and I don't want to draw panic by any means by saying we're running out of personal protective equipment, but yes, we are lower than we've ever been. We're working hard as a county as a whole to get that equipment. We have a couple backup plans in the fire service that general EMS would not have, because we have the big air tanks our firefighters can wear. And of course, we don't want them wearing those throughout the community, but we'll do whatever we have to do to keep them safe. So again, limiting exposure, whether it be the sprained ankle or a virus call, that saves the personal protective equipment, so we're not taking it from another entity or our hospital system.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any questions for Chief Love? Thank you, Chief. I have one other person here for public comment. This is the gentleman, I believe it's Mr. Shadle again.
No,
I don't.
No? Okay, this is another.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, this is Tim Shadle calling again, and I'd just like to comment on the word visitors is used in this resolution, and I really think at this time we should be discouraging the use of visitors, because I really don't think at this time we want visitors. And this is why I suggest, and I'm glad Vice Mayor Murphy is still open to possible further restrictions, but I still feel that our island should be only limited at this time to people that live here. And if we did that, we could possibly open up beach walks like Roxanne would like to have, because if we only have people that live here and reside on this island, we then could possibly relax the restriction of walking on the beach and allow people that live here, as long as they follow social distancing, they could then walk the beach. But I think this is no time at all that we should be encouraging, inviting any visitors into our area. We should be discouraging it. And that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Shadle. I'm sure that, okay, Amy, that should put everybody on mute again, please. Just so I could please just comment for a quick moment for Mr. Shadle. Does anybody believe that this encourages visitors? I think this is referring to, for example, if I happen to know several people who have family in their home that is going to be here for quite a few days or the next month. Those aren't necessarily residents, but they would fall into the visitor. But does anybody feel any differently?
Well,
Okay.
you have the issue of workers too. So are you going
Right,
to say
right.
residents, visitors, workers?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clean as it is.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, so I wanted to touch, have we missed anything? Is there an ability, John and council, do you wish to include something here that Ms. Lezak suggested about these ordinances or these resolutions will be addressed at a minimum every 30 days? Do we want to do something like that? Because of course they could be addressed again tomorrow.
I can guarantee you that these people will be bringing it forward more often than every 30 days. So we'll be hearing plenty about it.
Thank you, Ray.
I
Anybody
don't think it's
disagree with that,
necessary
Rex?
to add language.
Okay, Joanne?
No,
Joanne,
just think, the only, is this about this resolution or in general for the
just,
meeting?
well, about this resolution, to add something about revisiting, but I think Ray's correct. It's going to be revisited regularly.
So we're all clear. They can be revisited at any point in time.
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't think it needs to be put in there.
Okay. Okay. So, John, could you please go back to, did you state for us, I'm sorry, did you state for us the outside exercising mental health thing?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
He did, okay, sorry.
So as you have been doing now, therefore, the town council recommends that one, persons residing or visiting the town of Fort Myers Beach remain in their dwelling units or on their property, excluding the beach and within the C zoning district of the town, except as necessary to seek medical care, food, and other essential needs. Number two, residents and visitors shall adhere to social distancing practices, washing hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds or using hand sanitizer, covering coughs and sneezes into the sleeves or elbow, not hands, regularly cleaning high-touch surfaces and not shaking hands. Residents and visitors are strongly encouraged to limit all of their travel except as necessary. Number three, new, residents and visitors may engage in outdoor activity and recreation in areas not otherwise closed to the public, but urged to maintain a distance of at least 6 feet between each other, including without limitations, walking, hiking, running, or cycling. Groups of 10 or more individuals may not gather on a public street, alley, public way, sidewalk, or government facility open to the public. This emergency declaration does not modify or otherwise supersede any prior emergency declaration. And then the effective date as it currently is written would be at 12:01 Tuesday morning.
And do you think that that number 3 is clear about, once again, about not the beach?
Well, again, or areas not otherwise closed to the public. You already have an order or declaration closing the beach.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Roxanne, you made that motion, I believe?
Yes.
And Mr.
And I
Murphy, you
seconded it.
And Joanne, you seconded
I
that?
believe I seconded it.
Okay, yes, you did. You're right. And so you all agree with the what Mr. Herron has just read into the record?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Roxanne, you do as
Yes.
well? Okay. So there is a motion and a second to approve emergency declaration number 3 with the changes made read into the record by Mr. Herron. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Roxanne, may I have your vote?
Yes.
Joanne, may I have yours?
Yes.
Bruce, may I have your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That passes unanimously. I'd like to point out for people that we have not included or gone to any step of closing to non-essential businesses. We've not had any of that discussion. That is a potential next step should this council or the next feel the need to make that. But I'm certain that there are many people right now wondering if, you know, if they can still go to work. What have we effectively done? This last so I'd just like to kind of state out loud, if anybody disagrees, please let me know or wants to clarify. So our first step was to accept the rules as passed down by the governor in order to properly conduct our meetings in a digital form. The second one was to close and cancel all accommodation, vacation rentals, any kind of transient stay for the next 90 days effective at midnight tonight. The third was to memorialize the conversation that we've been having with the public about staying at home and what that means. It is aspirational in nature. We did not attach a fine to it. We're simply putting on paper what we've been asking people verbally to do. Does anybody have anything else? Yes, sir.
I have a question. The Governor DeSantis was supposed to have a news conference at 1:30, which would have been after our discussion started. So I'm wondering if anybody's been monitoring that to see if any proclamations were made or pronouncements that would supersede anything that we've done here today.
I'll tell you what he did.
Or maybe join in with him on something.
I can tell you what he did. And perhaps I know that Daphne Saunders, our staff member, has been monitoring that very closely. And she did send me a message that the governor has shut down completely Southeast Florida from Monroe County to Palm Beach County. But that's it. Southeast Florida. I know Daphne is, yeah, Mr. Hernstadt, have you heard anything further on the governor's actions? Roger?
Yes. He has a unified policy of stay at home, stay safer at home, will be issued through the middle of May for 4 counties, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and Monroe. And
middle of May.
Yes, so that's the information I received through the middle of May. Okay, and an order with regard to retired first responders who typically would have a 6-month waiting period before they can return to work. That it's a retirement system type of rule, that the governor be waiving that rule.
Okay, my question is, from what was just said, did the governor pass a mandatory shelter-in-place rule for those counties on the east coast of Florida?
I don't have the exact language, Mr. Vice Mayor. It's labeled as safer at home, stay at home.
Well, that sounds pretty
And that
vague.
exact language.
Okay, so that's not a real order then, because if he had issued a real order, then I would say that we're woefully under ordered here today if he was shutting down the east coast of Florida. Because if that were to happen,
based on the title, I would say that, interpreting it, but it sounds like it's a similar concept.
Yes.
That the council just took up. However, it's limited to those 4 counties.
All right, well, okay.
Okay, folks, so now if we could, and thanks for bearing with me, and I'd just like to, Amy and Michelle and Roger, I just want to thank you. So far, this seems to be working pretty darn well.
We're going to talk about complaints, lines.
I'm going back to our list, Joanne.
Okay, oh, thank you. Thank you, sorry.
So that's okay. So let's
Mayor,
talk about, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
If I may, briefly for clarification, Resolution 20-14 is adopted as presented. Declaration number 2 will be amended according to the motion before it is signed by the mayor, and the same Declaration 3, that there will be, it'll be amended before it's finalized.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right.
And I'm assuming all of those finals will be sent to town council so that we have them at our disposal when we're answering questions, as well to the media. Thank you.
Mr. Herron, Mr. Hernstadt, could we please talk about how do people, how would you like for our residents to file a complaint?
Madam Mayor, members of council, as you know, that if you receive a complaint, or I do, we look at it and see if it falls as a potential violation of the town code. And we begin an education process and a warning, and then necessary citation and fines accrue. However, in the course of the actions that have been taken with regard to coronavirus, some of the enforcement is at the state level, particularly with the bars, the Department of Business Regulation, with the restaurants at the Department of Health. So we approach people and say, look, we appreciate you cooperating, and if you don't, we forward those complaints to those agencies for their enforcement.
Mm-hmm. So, but Roger, more specifically, could you tell people that you want them to call a specific number to file a complaint with us? Or in other words, Joanne, are you looking for more specifics?
Well, yeah, I think if people know exactly what number to call, who to call, in other words, call the town for all of these things, even if it's a restaurant or whatever, the town will go out, check it out, discuss it with the restaurants, and then the town will pursue it with the state if necessary. Is that what we're saying? So
No.
I would hope.
No, I disagree.
I would hope. Yeah, I would hope that they would call people with jurisdiction, but if they call us, we're going to direct. Is that what you?
Okay.
Rexanne, go ahead.
I don't think that the town should be going out and investigating things that are state orders, that they should be given a phone number to call the state. It just makes too many layers.
Roger, could we publish on our website something, and even perhaps give this information to the front desk? If it pertains to restaurants, this is the number to call. If it pertains to just break it down into categories like Roxanne is suggesting, I think that would be very helpful. And Joanne also, I think, is suggesting that.
We can give them the contact information for the state for the matters under the state's jurisdiction.
That's great. And I think, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and if there is something that is under the sheriff's department jurisdiction, perhaps we give them that number as well. If it's not too much to ask to sort of compartmentalize those things so that we can be a little more clear with our callers. Joanne, go ahead.
And then, for instance, the condo pool, where that's the governor saying that coming in from New York and or these other states, they're supposed to be quarantined. Who do they call on that complaint when somebody has come through and has not done that?
Department of Health.
The Department
Okay,
of Health.
so maybe we can
have that
that's
number.
Florida or Lee County?
Florida.
Okay.
The problem is that they probably aren't going to get through. Well, okay. We'll do the best.
And of course, I'm assuming even with the restaurants and things, if it is against a town ordinance, for instance, parking in the right of way, or not putting up the tables and chairs, or congregating closer than 6 feet together in the operation of their business at this point, I'm assuming that the town can handle because of our what was passed.
I have to say that if people are pulling up and somewhere pausing to pick up a takeout order, I don't want people being harassed about that. Even if they're pausing in the right of way to pick up a takeout order, we don't have any traffic out there. There's hardly anybody around. Let's not try to make life more difficult for folks. And we're trying to limit the contact. So we don't want our staff talking to people unless they need to be. So if someone's really not causing a problem and they're just pausing to pick up a takeout order, let's leave them alone.
Yeah, I would, I'm not making up stuff to do. These are specific complaints on this particular section of town, which I can talk to Roger about. Have had multiple complaints about it. So, and people cannot walk the sidewalks because of the behavior. So they can't get out, they can't social distance, they can't.
Yeah, I don't,
okay, good.
I'm trying to
so
imagine where that would be.
I'm happy. Thank you. I'm content with that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the pool issue is up to condominium associations. The complaint process, Roger is going to assemble a call list that we can post on the website that can be distributed by our folks who are answering the phones there. Okay, I don't have anything else on my list that's been brought up in the course of the meeting, but I'm going to go one by one and see if anyone has something. Mr. Murphy, anything else you'd like to add here?
I can't think of anything specific right now, but I just want to thank all the people on the beach here who are cooperating with what we have in place already. I mean, these are extremely difficult times, and we're not even near the bad part yet. That's the scary part, and hopefully that'll be won't be as bad as they say it's going to be, but it's certainly going to be a heck of a lot worse than it is right now. So if everybody can continue to cooperate as they have thus far, it would certainly be helpful. And I have no indication that the people on the beach aren't doing that. So if we can just keep it going the way it is right now, I think we're going to do just fine. And then we can address it as things move on. But I tend to agree with Joanne. From what I'm hearing from the professionals, this is not a short-term event. It's going to go on for a while, and we have to be prepared to deal with that in the short term and the longer term. So it's going to be fluid as things are with all of these governments right now, and we're just going to have to be able to address it at our get-togethers, our meetings here, and keep it moving in the right direction. But I just want to thank everybody that is helping out, and know that we'll get through it eventually. Thank you.
Ray. Bruce, do you have anything further?
I do not.
Rexanne, do you have anything further?
I would like to say that I've seen extreme amounts of compliance and cooperation, neighbors helping neighbors. I grow ever more impressed with my community day by day.
I know.
And I'd like to praise our staff for putting together all of the things that they needed to do to make this happen today. I expected it not to go as well as it did, to be honest. And I think we did, that the technology worked for us very well. And I think that's due to our staff's preparation and hard work, and I thank them.
Thank you. Joanne, do you have anything else further?
I just want to, thank all the fire department, all the healthcare workers, the police, people who would love to be able to stay home and can't because they're serving us. And every time we stay home, we might be saving one of their lives. We may be saving the life of one of their family members who will then become exposed because of something we did, a behavior that we did that put them in a position where they were exposed. So every time you're missing doing something, like your walk on your beach or whatever it is that you're giving up, stop and think, who do you love that you would sacrifice for this? Or who in the community would you sacrifice for the walk that you wished you could take today? So I thank everybody for complying. We talk about the 100-year storm for hurricanes. This is a 100-year storm in a whole different way. It was 1918, the flu, the Spanish flu. Sorry to put a name on that. That's what it's known as.
I don't take offense.
I'm not. I'm sorry, Anita.
That's
but
okay.
We are in a 100-year storm, and I hope that the changes that we go through will be positive for our society in the long run. But for now, take the moments to cherish what you have in place with those you love. And thank you to Roger and the staff for their leadership. I'm thrilled that our staff and those that serve our town are not exposed, that they've set up even within the town itself to protect the town's employees, who are the community, the employees really of our entire taxpaying community. And I want them to know that they're being well taken care of as well. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, so I have had a couple of questions pop up all about the red coconut. Mr. Herron, do we assume that the red coconut is an accommodation? Do you feel that they are adequately included in our previous resolution?
I believe so, but I can verify if and report back to you if necessary. But I believe they fall within the definition of transient lodging.
Okay.
Right now.
I'd also like to
can we?
Go ahead, Joanne.
I'm sorry. Shall we specify that in some way as an addendum, or is there some way we can do that at this point?
It just it fell within what we had done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. I'd also like to report that Mayor Ruane of Sanibel did send me a message relative to the governor's action, Ray. And he said that what the governor effectively did was memorialize the action that had been taken by those particular counties individually. That's what he did today. So, yeah, that's it. Okay. Anything else other than to echo all of your comments about how really, truly how extraordinary I have found everyone to be. Up to and including, I got a couple of emails this morning. I don't know if you all saw them, about people who were angry that we closed the beach and now apologizing that they understand why we did it. Very, very generous comments from them. So right now, I'm just going to ask you, Michelle and Amy, do we have anybody else waiting to give any kind of public comment? If we don't?
I don't show anyone else, Mayor.
Okay,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Shadle made a bunch of comments during the course of today's meeting. I just want to state for the record that he addressed an email to all of you just before the meeting started at 1 o'clock, in which he outlined the very same points he stated verbally to you all today throughout the course of your discussion for 3 hours.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anything from anyone else? I think we've covered everything. Roger, John?
You know
do
what? May
Yes, go
I,
ahead.
Madam Mayor, I would like to echo some sentiments that people feel that your leadership has been very strong through this. It's a unique situation, far different than anything you probably ever envisioned at Incorporation or your first term as mayor. But I personally want to thank you. I bet you've had more sleepless nights than I have, more phone calls, more emails. I know we're all deeply invested, but I just want to thank you for your leadership.
Joanne, thank you very much for that. But you know, every time I open my mouth, I see the four of you standing right beside me. And it's an honor. So thank you for that. Okay, so folks, may I please have a motion to adjourn? It is, wait, before I do that, Michelle, am I missing anything procedural? Lee?
Nothing I'm aware of. Thank you.
Mr. Heron, anything?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Hernstead, anything?
Ma'am, you covered all the items on the agenda.
Thank you so much. It's 3:30 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Butcher and a second by Mrs. Shamp. Is there any objection? The motion carries unanimously. It's nice to see you all in these little boxes.
Excuse me.
I miss you. Okay, so
Peace,
unless
Peace.
anything happens, we'll see each other on the 6th. Okay? Stay
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all
Bye.
so much.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you to Chief Love for chiming in for us. Thank you, guys. Bye.